by Stephen Talcott Smith, Increasing Your Value as a Developer.
Hold on a second. I don't know. It's doing keyboard setup assistant here.
Chris Zip and Slack.
Alright. Let's start. Hello.
Hello.
Thanks. Do I need a mic?
Yeah.
You do? Okay. I do. Hello? Hello?
Hello.
All right. I'm Stephen Talcott Smith. The topic is increasing your value as a developer. A little bit about me. I am the founder of Alogica. I also call myself the Chief Happiness Officer. My goal is to keep customers, employees happy. Last year, I wrote a book called Level Up, How to Become a Great Professional Developer. And the inspiration for this book was really that I wanted to take all the things that I had been able to share with our early employees, now that we're at a size where I cannot necessarily sit down one-on-one with everyone as they onboard. So it started out almost like an internal document, but I've since turned it into a book. There's a free coupon here for RubyConf 2015. You can download the ebook, and I encourage you to check it out because I will not be able to share all of the content in this talk. So first of all, let's start with a little show of hands. Who wants to become more valuable? All right, that's good. If I have your attention then, you may want to close your laptop, and we'll see what we can do with that. So, otherwise, you're like this guy. There are three aspects. I've had the good fortune to work with a number of very talented people over the years, and I've observed them closely. It really started for me back in the late 90s when I went to work for a startup. Up until that point in my career, I thought I was pretty hot stuff. I could do all sorts of system level stuff. I could write application programs. I thought I had it down. And then I had the opportunity to work with three much older developers. They were at least 10 years older than me, all of them. And one of them in particular had done kernel level work for HP. He was a very serious, hardcore guy, and now he was working on the application that we were working on, and he was just a machine. It blew my mind how much more productive this guy was, and it completely reset my bar. I'll give you an example. We were working in Java at the time, and back then we had to write servlets, and all of your statements were like println, printf, some strings of HTML. And so I was basically struggling with how to generate the web pages for this application. And he came in, he saw me struggling with this problem, and one day he came in, it was a weekday, and he just drops a floppy on my desk and says, I haven't compiled this yet. I just wrote this up last night. And I don't know if he was kidding, but it wasn't a complete framework. Basically, it was cold fusion in 500 lines of Java, and it blew my mind. I was like, how could you do that? How could you do that after a full day of work? Like, go home, type this up. There was even a typo in the file, which, I don't know if he deliberately put it there just to mess with me, to make me think that he didn't compile it and test it, But he set a whole new bar for my expectation, and it's been the journey of many years to understand what makes developers really productive and how can we be more productive and more valuable. So there are three aspects I want to discuss: attitudes, habits, and techniques. And there's some overlap there. There's some overlap there between habits and techniques. But what do we mean by valuable? We want to be more effective. We want to be higher performing. And we want others to recognize our contributions and perceive the value in them. Perceived value is important. As professionals, we write software for other people. We get paid for what we do. And most importantly, our pay generally increases with our perceived value. It's not just enough to be valuable. You must actually be perceived as valuable. I want to discuss attitude first. Not necessarily the happy face. I mean, it's good to be happy. It's good to be a positive person and easy to work with and such, but I'm really talking about attitude in terms of your approach and how you think about what you're doing. The most important thing is to focus on delivering value. A lot of developers I encounter, if you ask them what is it that they do, they think that their job is to write code. But your job is not simply to write code. Your job is to deliver value. Writing code is just one way we achieve this. There are a number of other ways that we deliver value. It's just a quick list. We might polish something, we might document, clean up, groom your backlog, questioning everything, automate chores. You may assist your colleagues in delivering value. All of these increase the assets and liabilities and decrease the liabilities in our system. I want to do a little audience participation here. Who can name some assets of a software system? This is a framework that you can use to describe things for your stakeholders. It helps them to make good decisions. So when you're pitching your boss or something, or a client on whether or not to pursue an approach or something, this is a good framework to use the assets and liabilities. A system that's all liabilities becomes worthless and ends up getting rewritten. So, who can tell me what some assets are?
Features.
Features. Okay. All features? Are all features assets? Features the users like and use are assets.
Reliability.
Reliability is an asset, absolutely.
Up-to-date documentation.
Documentation, asset.
Or current documentation.
Sure. Any other assets? How about some liabilities?
Code.
All code is a liability. That's right.
Technical debt.
Technical debt. Any other liabilities?
Developers.
Well, if you have an intact team that understands the code and is able to make changes, that's an asset. It's part of the system. The people and the code go together. If your team is disbanded or not functioning well, it can be a liability also. So it's not just the code, an artifact. Another approach you want to take is to think about how to maximize the performance of your whole team. And where we define performance as the sustained pace of value delivery. We want to avoid, crunch time, excessive hours, emergency situations. All of these are process smells that tell us something is going wrong. Another attitude code is communication. If you think that your code is just commanding the machine to do something, that's not quite right. It is communication between people. It has the constraint that it must be executable in the interpreter. The compiler follows the grammar, does what we want it to do. But it's really represents your concrete understanding of your problem at a given time. And it's important to remember that you may be communicating with yourself. Except for whatever that guy's doing, professional software development is usually a team sport. You can't be effective alone. So the code you write represents not just your understanding, but the understanding of your team, what it has figured out, and what needs to be done, and how it should work. To maximize our productivity, we want to minimize the total cognitive effort exerted by all parties. This means we want to communicate efficiently, make things easier for other people. And we want to eliminate future effort. Future effort sometimes belongs in that liability column. Maybe it's technical debt, could be other things, but when you have an opportunity to pay it forward and eliminate something in the future, it makes sense sometimes to do that. Now, I want to talk about habits. Not these kind of habits. These kind of habits. The first part is be regular. The developer that so inspired me 15 or 20 years ago he was like clockwork. He showed up every day at the exact same time. He clicked into the zone so easily. I was envious. His life was very, like this. I was looking for a quote. This guy said, "Be regular and ordinary in your life so that you may be violent and original in your work." I can't really get behind violence except when we're squashing bugs or whatever, but originality is usually a benefit, sometimes. But you get the point. Sleep well. I think sleeping is an important part of your job. You can't be effective if you're operating at 50% of your cognitive function. And if you have habitual sleep problems, you should address them. You can actually use sleep to solve problems. How many of you have solved something that you felt like you dreamed about it or was working, your brain was working while you were sleeping? Anybody? Yeah. It works. And there are techniques you can use to basically give your subconscious a chance to work. You can seed it and utilize that. No, I know we're all waiting for lunch. And I don't think this is a big problem in the Philippines, but you do see some poor eating habits in the US. This is my favorite dish, crispy pata, but I will not eat it at lunch. It will put you to sleep. So, you want to eat stuff like that. Defend your best hours. We all have this alertness pattern that you learned, when you're observing yourself. You observe that your alertness varies throughout the day. And interruptions at the wrong point of the day really, really hurt. This is where the magic happens for me. I get really angry when I'm in a problem and someone messes me up. It happened. I was on site with a client a year and a half ago, and the manager had this annoying habit of calling stand-ups whenever, for whatever crazy idea popped into his mind. And I was working on something very difficult, and making good progress, and then he wanted to have a huddle, and I'm just like, and no one would stand up to the guy. I told him, I said, please don't do this. Just don't. But it's a good idea to know when is your magic hour. Throughout the day, you're going to do different kinds of stuff and different kinds of work, but there is usually one or two segments where you're really going to do the hard thing, and you have to protect that. This gets into cultivating flow. You're all familiar with this. Flow is what we call the zone. Most of us are not very aware of how to get into the zone, and there are techniques for it. Some of the stuff in here is specifically about how to get in the zone. One thing you want to do is take better breaks, and I know I'm the second office space picture today. But one aspect of taking better breaks is timing them. And you're all familiar with Pomodoro. Anyone not familiar with it? Is anyone using it? A little bit. All right. It's easy to fall out of the discipline. That's why I practice something else, which is the 8 glasses of water method. If you are properly hydrated, you will have to get up fairly frequently. It comes with added health benefits. When you take a break, decide if it's a short break or a long break, because there's a slightly different way of handling your break. A short break is 5 minutes or less. Long break is like 20 minutes. Pomodoro, kind of, if you follow the actual thing, it recommends that you take a long break every 4 Pomodoros. So you break your day into the 8 segments and all of that. But yeah, 3 short breaks for every long break, something like that. For a short break, this is what I do. I try to state what I did during the last little segment. Think about what I was going to do next before I return. And if you have a rubber ducky, you can tell it to the duck. If you're pair programming, tell it to your pair. Just nod and then take your break. And then when you come back, just restate the same thing, sit down, and you're in it. There's no time wasted there. The long break procedure, depending on how complex your work is, if you left something in progress, it's nice to actually wrap something up before you take a long break. But if you're unable to, then you might just write down where you were. Always get up and walk around. Move away from your computer. Try not to look at another screen. I know this is hard, and you'll have people interrupting us or things going on, but you need to give your eyes a rest. And don't engage in activity that might delay returning, because mentally returning, right? If you see something on Facebook or whatever, and it stimulates your mind, and then you're in a distract zone, it can totally derail you when you come back. So, just be careful, right? Because you're managing your mental state. In games of stroke, where success or failure is determined by the quality of the stroke, like golf, tennis, softball or baseball, bowling, the player often goes through a little setup routine. Then here you can see Tiger preparing to address the ball. That might be $1 million putt. You never know. But we have a stroke, and I think the stroke happens whenever you sit down to accomplish something. And if you follow a little setup routine, you work on your setup routine, it makes it so you are more consistent. And consistency is what we're after. We work in open source. We have power over our destiny. We don't have to be voodoo programmers trusting in the black box. Everything that's open source is knowable. You can read it. Just do gem open. And when do you read the source? Well, I give Google or Stack Overflow about a minute. And if it doesn't give me exactly what I need to do, I go into the source. And I've noticed a lot of people spend too long searching for solutions online when, the value you would get as a developer out of reading the source and actually learning what is really there, is much greater than just taking a solution about something you don't understand. So use gem open. Techniques are a little different than habits, but there's some overlap here. Habit is something that happens on a trigger, like you want to make it regular, right? The technique is, I don't know. I put this under techniques. You want to feed yourself. This is my wife, Zelda, and our second child, Blaze, after Pascal. But I'm not talking about food. I'm talking about requirements. Spoon feeding someone takes a lot of time. Those of you who know your parents and whatnot. Developers are eating requirements. Okay? That's what we process. Here are our boys last weekend. Blaze is eating on his own. That's good. But this is probably the single most important thing you could do to add value. And that is learn to think like a product manager, like a product owner, like a user experience designer. You don't have to be an expert in all these things. But when you talk about reducing the cognitive load on the whole team, sure, you can say, it's not my fault the product manager doesn't really know what they're doing, or they didn't have time to explain it completely. But the more you can fill in the gaps, the more you can think the problems through on your own, the less you have to be spoon-fed, and the more independent you are. You all are expert computer users. You've been using, programs all your life. You're very good at it. You know what works and what doesn't work. Whatever frustrates you, cultivate that understanding and use it so that you don't have to kick something over to QA to have it come back, or somebody comes back and says, oh no, it's not really that useful. No. The user experience here needs some work. And this gets into time management here. We want to distinguish bounded tasks and unbounded tasks. The greatest source of schedule risk in any project comes from unbounded tasks. Those are things that we don't know quite how long they're going to take. Some tasks can be easily estimated. You can rate their relative complexity. I don't care what system you're using. There is a subset of every project that consists of unbounded tasks. The technique is time boxing. And this is actually something that was addressed earlier with Fun Day Friday, which is a time boxing technique. But there are some other ways we can use time boxing. The advantage of time boxing is it allows you to make progress on unbounded tasks while you maintain your pace of value delivery. So this increases confidence on the part of stakeholders, management, and other folks that are maybe involved in the process. And it gives you more freedom of action to do what you need to do. Here's an example of how time boxing might fit into a week. So you have this unbounded task in yellow, and then we'll group all the bounded tasks in green. You start with your initial research, maybe an hour or so, and you leave it for the end of the day to do your first attempt. And you can do things at the end of the day because you might enlist your subconscious in the process. Not really sure. So you take your first attempt and then sleep on it. but you have to deliver stuff. So Tuesday morning, you come in and you do your things you know how long they're going to take, things you think you can deliver. And then again, I think you've got another idea, maybe you're going to try at the end of the day. Maybe at the end of Tuesday, you think it's going to work. And so you decide to hit it first thing for a limited amount of time Wednesday morning. Now you know how long it will take. Now it's a bounded task. And you dedicate Thursday morning to that, finish it. So what you've done here, if you didn't do this, you would maybe burn the first 3 days of the week without producing anything. Maybe you got silent, you know. Managers hate that. What are you doing? How long is it going to take? When's it going to be done? They won't be bothering you if you do this. Now, I have a little thing called a value alarm, and this is like maybe it's a technique, it's a habit also. Every 20 minutes or so, I try to stop myself and say, what am I doing here? Am I really adding value? Because we, as obsessive compulsive programmers, get caught up in these little nitpicks, things that are not really important. And this is it's like a little tick that you want to set in your mind. Am I just doing something for myself here? Is there no reason for this, or is this something that's adding value? And you can do this with a pair partner. You can do it with a duck, and eventually you don't even need to say it out loud. But you know, it's internalizing this guy here. De-risk your project in the beginning. At the beginning of every project, morale is high. You have the open road before you. You don't have the schedule pressure. This is when you want to slay dragons. This is a graph of technical risk. We want to reduce it early on the project as much as possible. Start your session with a warm-up task. So every day, thinking back to, this establishes momentum early. You want to deliver something, you want to choose something that you think you can deliver in an hour or a number of minutes, right? So there's your warm-up time. That's where you want to do your warm-up tasks. This has the effect of, you combine this with the chart for flow, and you'll see that as your ability climbs, you need to tackle the more complex stuff. But you use that sort of early, just rolled in to do something easy, you get in the rhythm. It's very, very effective. So I have just a little bit of time left, and everyone wants to eat lunch. So I'll just quickly review the attitude, habits, and techniques. I'm going to place the slides up. I just wanted to say a couple things in closing. I want to thank the other sponsors here. Everyone give a round of applause for the other sponsors. Thank you to the organizers. And I wanted to thank Angelica, who's been very helpful for us in getting our whole thing set up. We all have an interest in ensuring the continued growth and health of the Ruby community here in the Philippines. And you know, at Logica, we've been consistent and enthusiastic supporters of the community. There is an abundance of talent, and we need to keep bringing people in and ensure that this continues here. But next year, I want to see more sponsors. I don't want to be the only lead or platinum sponsor here. So you tell me who needs to call or whatever, and I will call them, because I'll help. You know, it will be better for everyone if we have more. If you're a manager or a leader in your company, or you're employing developers here in the Philippines, please step up and do your part here. If you're a developer, attend events, contribute in the usual ways. Ruby's been very good to me. I found a true home in the Ruby community, both in the US and here in the Philippines, because I think that it blends just the right amount of public spirit, community spirit, and openness, and enlightened commercial interest, let's just say, a business mind. Level Up, here's the book. Please download the get the coupon. You can scan it on the thing on our table. You can connect with me on LinkedIn or Twitter. I've started a group on LinkedIn called Velocity and Agility, where we're going to kind of discuss these topics, and I have a lot of writing coming out on that. If you have any questions, feel free to approach me, or if you'd like to explore opportunities with Illogica, talk to me or talk to Angelica. Thank you all for being such a good audience.